Fear the Spotlight
Spirit,
is a
are you
third-person
dangerous?
survival horror game that follows two girls, Vivian and Amy, as they sneak into school at night to conduct a seance on a Ouija board they borrow from the school library, but end up contacting things they wish they
Amy, I
hadn't.
don't like this.
The game is available on Steam, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and Nintendo Switch.
Amy, I want to stop. Amy?
Atmosphere. Fear the Spotlight fluctuates between tension, dread, and eeriness, and it's achieved through the game's sound design and stealth gameplay. Its lightest moments are devoid of all noise, with the protagonist walking almost silently through dark environments. The creepy, destroyed, and abandoned school is constantly dimly lit, as is Amy's home in her chapter. And the eeriness is amplified by how some things don't have sound effects accompany them at all. Just the lonely sound of footsteps and the thin cone of the flashlight as you follow them through upturned rooms. It's strangely ominous, and the void in sound leaves you waiting for a jump scare. On the other end of the scale, the pockets of silence make walking into rooms that have an insidious, groaning ambience feel even worse. The soundtrack does not disappoint, and certain rooms, whether anything happens in them or not, feel like something will. The game's exploration is constantly tense as a result. The way the camera follows the character and the motion of the flashlight also makes turning corners and walking into weird things feel like a real discovery. It's very fluid and natural, and there's several moments in the game where the feeling that something bad is coming can be pretty intense and almost overwhelming. Most of the game's enemies generate light, and eventually you'll learn that it's somehow safer in the darkness, an odd juxtaposition for a horror game. The game masters tension and delivers a really ominous experience that's formula may be simple, but works constantly. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. The game is heavily stealth-based, and hiding from enemies is done really well, due to the game's camera and sound design again working well to make creeping around behind tables and under desks feel intense. The searchlight the enemies have gives a clear idea of whether you're in view or not, alongside the burning circles they leave on the ground that damage you if you stand on them. But the fear comes from that shining light in your eyes. It's startling and makes it difficult to know where to run. The audio cues also tell you if you're in immediate danger. When you draw too near to being spotted, the soundtrack lets you know with a shrill noise to remind you that you're almost visible. And these things combined, it makes the stealth pretty nerve-wracking. Getting seen results in you getting grabbed, which is a pretty frightening animation, but it's not as deadly as you think, and you can usually walk away from it. Amy's story had the more frightening enemies with the ghost-like woman, but the result was usually the same, of being able to walk away from the first grab, which did reduce a little bit of the dread out of being seen, but it didn't make getting grabbed any less frightening. The game's resource management on Vivian's side was especially scarce on healing, which did make it a bit more of a problem if you did get seen. There's several other strange scripted events and eerie moments as the game goes on, and they're executed really well, either being so ominously creepy that you want to leave the room, or stark and loud events that startle you. Fear the Spotlight did a surprisingly good job with the scares. That's 2 Harry Masons. Sound design. The soundtrack is a strange one, with various ominous pieces of white noise-infused darkness, low humming, rumbling and eerie whines make up most of the game's incredible tension pieces. It's mainly ambiance, but it works so well at generating atmosphere. The stealth music sounds like a bunch of alien birds singing alongside a wooden ship that's about to have its hull crushed by a sea monster, and alongside the raising and falling of the shrill noise of the visibility indicator. The stealth, again, can be pretty intense sound-wise. As mentioned earlier, the game also uses silence to great effect, leaving just the sporadic sound effects in the otherwise quiet rooms. The sound effects themselves are really well done and pretty immersive. Some of the more unique noises sound like rusty metal doors swinging open, a stone being dragged across a grate, knives on a plate. It's refreshing to have such dramatic, unique noises in a game, and the more traditional things like doors opening still sound pretty creepy too.
Got the spirit board. Yes!
Welcome, Vivian. Please, take your seat, and we can begin. Tonight, I will be your guide into the world of the supernatural. Are you ready?
The game's voice acting is fantastic for the 2 girls. It feels very earnest and their conversations are pretty great. Vivian's voice really suits the situation too. There's a few uses of really deep reverb in the game, and it again makes those moments feel more ghostly and supernatural. And between this and the game's sound space, it just shows how things like sound design really do make a big difference in the way the game feels. The sound design in Fear the Spotlight is incredibly well done, and possibly even the strongest aspect horror-wise. That's 3 Harry Masons. Gore. There's only a few spots of blood consistent with the game's story and no real gore, and the game didn't really seem to need any. That's 4 Harry Masons.
Amy? Amy? Are you okay?
Story. Amy and Vivian sneak into their school at night to borrow a Ouija board to conduct a seance, when during it something goes horribly wrong and Amy goes missing. The game is split into 2 chapters, with Vivian's chapter being the first that you'll get to experience. The story is really told through notes and covers the upsetting and tragic backstory of Chrissy Castro, who after auditioning for the school play, finds herself the target of bullying by the daughter of the school's superintendent, and because of his status, all of Chrissy's cries for help are swept under the carpet. The notes are so well done that it makes you want to find more of them, providing moments of both joy and elation for Chrissy as she falls in love, but eventually it leads to cover-ups, heartbreak and despair as things go off the rails. The story ends up being far more compelling than expected, and it really feels like you're uncovering what happened as the environmental storytelling matches up with the notes, and you see the events of the past and piece things together for yourself. Amy's scenario feels more like Silent Hill and takes her into a version of another world based on her past and follows her through her home, taking her back to the start of the relationship developing between Amy and Vivian, an aspect that ends up being endearing through Vivian's chapter, but more personal in Amy's chapter as one of the few good things in her life, since the rest focuses on the dark parts of her childhood. It's basically an entire other game to pour through. Both girls have great dialogue and feel like real characters. The story in both chapters ends up being, again, surprisingly compelling and really pushes the game forwards, and whilst it's mainly restricted to notes and audio files to listen to, it's enough to keep you wanting to find out what happened and what will become of them. Making the final score 5 out of 5 Harry Masons. Fear the Spotlight is just really well done. There was no part of it that felt lacking, with even the puzzles being satisfyingly refreshing and actually felt like they were done with logical deduction in mind in a way that didn't feel like it resulted in being esoteric or obtuse. The resource management of the inhaler for Vivian felt realistic and made trying to avoid getting grabbed feel worthwhile, and the story and atmosphere were just spot on. I didn't walk into it expecting much, but walked away from it very satisfied. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I am officially done with creepy schools, I didn't leave without solving the mystery, and I advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to go check out Bumps in the Middle of the Night. Peace.